My name is Alyssa Yesko. I'm the director of the Pathways into Education Center. Our office advises on lots of things, including undergraduate minors, pathways to graduate education, as well as we work with our alumni. And so we set up this info session with our wonderful Department of Educational Literacy, Teaching and Learning. And they're here today to provide information about some programs that have some upcoming deadlines that are available to students who hold initial teaching certification. And so that's what this session is going to focus on today. And I think now is probably a good time to get started. Jenny, if you want to share your screen again, and then you guys can introduce yourselves and jump right in. I will say that typically the way that these sessions work, we go through a presentation where we give you guys some great information about the program, usually a lot of information that you guys are kind of craving at this point, and then we allow for question and answer at the end of the presentation. If you do have any questions throughout, we encourage you to use the chat function, and then we'll check that chat once we're finished. I know that many of you pre-submitted some questions. Some of those questions will certainly be answered during the presentation. We want to make sure we get to all of those questions though, so we'll be sure to address those at the end of the presentation as well. So thank you all for being here today, and hope that you've all had a wonderful start to your week.
I'm going to just introduce myself before I share the screen. I know it's easier for some people to see me. I'm Dr. Goley. I'm chair of the Department of Literacy, Teaching and Learning, and I'm happy to talk you through our programs today, and we most welcome your questions both during these sessions, and please reach out. I'm sure you'll think of things afterwards. We're happy to respond. And Risha, would you introduce yourself?
Oh, there we go. I was muted, sorry. My name's Risha Reeder, and I'm the department coordinator. And I am available at any time when you have questions via email and phone.
Okay. So here we go. If you have a question along the way, please feel free to use this chat box, and we ask you to please keep yourself muted. We'll have time at the end for some question and answers as well. Our department website, I strongly encourage you to look for it and find it. It has information on our department faculty and our programs and so forth. We also have a very active Facebook page. You can like us there, and it has all kinds of information on upcoming events. So our session today is for those of you who are looking into teacher certification at the University of Albany. If the focus of this session today is on the programs for people who already have initial certification. So one question that comes up is, we get emails, you know, you don't have any certification yet, so you're wondering what you could take. The program connected with our department for that is Special Ed and Literacy 2. That's for people who are prospective students who already have a bachelor's degree and want to enter the teaching profession. It is one that gives you initial certification. It's actually initial certification in childhood, special ed, and literacy. It is a 2-year full-time program, and the admission is summer only. So if you're interested in that program, I'm going to just say most of what I'll say upcoming does not apply to that program. We'll do a different session, and we can answer your questions differently for those of you seeking initial certification. Otherwise, the rest of this, I'm going to show you one more program that does not require certification, but then we'll mostly talk about professional certs and second initial. So we do have an MS in reading option. This is a degree for people who want to know more about reading literacy more broadly, but don't have certification. It has a lot of flexibility in it, a lot of electives. So if you do have initial certification, this is also an option for you. You can use the MS in reading for professional certification as well, and I'll take you through that in a minute here. So one program option we have is the MS in reading. We know many of you already have initial certification, so if you're interested in professional certification, here's a couple of areas you might look into. One, if your initial certification is in early childhood, We have an MS in early childhood. It includes coursework on younger kids all the way, including elementary as well. Or if your initial certification is in childhood ed, we do have an MS degree for childhood ed. So you would apply for the program that matches the area of your initial certification. Sometimes we have people ask if they could use that to get the other certification. So sometimes we'll have someone with a childhood degree who's also interested in getting an early childhood. In that case, you would apply for the childhood, but we'd help you take some electives that would help you lead toward your early childhood certificate. But you apply for the program in the area of your initial certificate. If you have initial teacher certification in any area at all, so it could be TESOL, it could be the secondary, it could be a range of areas, special education, that one you could take the MS in reading. That one you go through New York State Ed for individual evaluation pathway is what they call it. They review your transcript and look at your degree, and that is a route to get your professional certification as well. Some people are interested in that if they want something on their transcripts that's different than early childhood and childhood. So you're looking for something that would add another area to your transcript. The MS in reading does not provide the literacy certification, though. I'll get to that in a minute. All three of these degrees are a 30 credit program. So essentially 10 courses. The other option, if you have initial certification, is the literacy certification. And what this does, it gives you a second initial certificate. It also gives you professional certification in the area of your initial. So let's say you're a childhood major. If you do literacy, you'll be eligible for literacy initial plus professional in both childhood and literacy. This program, the initial teacher certification, is a requirement to apply for this program. That's actually a New York State Ed regulation. So the difference with this program, these also have 30 credits for the birth to grade 6 and grade 5-12, or you can do a degree that combines both of them for 36 credits. However, this program has a lot of practicum hours that you work on with students. So it gives you additional certificate, but it also has some different components of the program. For people trying to decide what program do I do, one of the questions we get asked is, well, do you have to take an additional certification exam? So for just your professional cert, if you enroll the MS in early childhood, childhood, or reading, there is no extra CST. They take what you've already done. If you go into the MS in literacy program, because you're getting an additional initial certification, that program you do need to take and pass the CST in literacy for your literacy certificate. So that's the program that has the extra exam. By New York State Ed regulations, admission to our programs require initial certification. The only exceptions, as I said in the beginning, is the MS in reading and the special ed literacy 2. If you are missing a requirement or need to complete an exam, we may admit you at what's called a conditional omit. We know and recognize some of you have the COVID emergency certificate. We will work with you on that. We know in some cases you haven't been able to take some of the exams. We are well aware of that. We have a process in place that we can go ahead and admit you as a conditional, and that gives you extra time as well to get some of those things cleared up. What we do is prior to registering for your second semester, you update the department on the status of your certification, and you can take up to 12 credits before you have to have that initial certificate in hand. So this application process is important. It's a bit different than your undergrad process. I'm going to talk you through a few components of this process. So one is transcripts. You need to make sure you give us and submit transcripts for all the schools where you completed 12 or more credits. So, you know, if you went to a community college for 2 years and then a 4-year school, you're going to include the transcripts in both places. For the review process, we will take unofficial transcripts, but if you're admitted, we're going to need the official copies. That's a requirement in place. And I know for some of you who may be completing this semester or so forth, you know, we know your transcripts may still have, you haven't graduated yet per se, if you're graduating at the end of this fall. So that's why you might submit a transcript, and then we look for it down the road, the final version that shows you graduate, since that's part of the application process. The 3 letters of recommendation, these are important. Again, all of these pieces we take seriously. At least one of the letters should be from a professor or instructor that can attest to your success as a student. So it really focuses on your academic success. I know some people will also have a letter maybe from a cooperating teacher or a supervisor. The more you have that talks about your teaching and so forth is great. You also want to have information on your academic progress. The entrance exam, the option is to complete the GRE, but we also accept some exams in lieu of that, including the EdTPA, the GMAT, the Miller's Analogy, and so forth. If you have any questions at all about the entrance exam, please contact Risha and she can talk through with you, because we know right now it's hard to complete some of these exams. We also have application questions that are specific to our program, and we take those questions seriously. We're looking to see, are you a good match for us? Are we a good match for you? Are we helping you get the next place on your career? So you'll notice if you apply for us, you'll have questions that might be different even from other programs within the School of Education and certainly across the state. So please take your time to answer those. Once you get to them in the application, you can spend some time writing your answers to them. Think about when you did your undergrad application, you spent some time on your essay, right? These questions are similar to that. We want to know your goals, your experiences, and your own literacy abilities, and a lot of that is to help us make sure you get in the right program as well. We review each application independently. 2 faculty members use it. We'll look at it. We look at your academic performance, your subject matter knowledge, your teaching skills, your writing ability. The thing for you to know, your GPA, we look at everything and we look at it as a whole. So it might be that you are really strong in some areas and not as strong in another. On that writing sample, the last question is, tell us what you know, if there's anything you think we should know. You know, if you started out as a freshman in a major and had a really hard time and then you switched majors, just let us know. We look at the whole picture and any information you have is helpful to us. So you can be admitted outright, conditionally admitted, or denied. The conditional admit right now is a lot of the COVID emergency certs just until you have that entrance exam. That entrance exam is actually a New York State law. So that's why we have the conditional admit to help people get started until they're able to finish those exams. Our program uses attributes as a framework. In your undergrad program, you might have something like dispositions or goals or so forth. We call them attributes. We have them available. If you wish to see them, just send Risha an email. They give you an overview of some of the main components of our program if you're interested. One of the questions we get is do we have a comprehensive exam or do you need to write a thesis? We don't have that. Instead, we have what's called a culminating project. It's a reflective essay. You work on it in every course through your program, and what are called course reflective essays. And then you pull that together in your last course, and it's around those attributes and a focused reflective essay. So no, there is no thesis or no comprehensive exam. We use this reflective essay instead. So let's talk about the program components. The MS in Early Childhood is completely online. In an asynchronous, which means it mostly uses Blackboard. MS in Childhood is completely online. The MS in Reading is completely online. Those programs have been in place for 20 years at this point. We're ranked number 8 in the country. We've been doing this for a long time. So that's a component of that. Those 3 courses are asynchronous. The MS in Literacy has some synchronous courses as well. What that means, and that's because of the practicums, that they may meet the same time each week via Zoom. So it might be when you have your 619 practicum, you meet on Tuesday nights from 4 to 7 And that's where you have your class and you do your practicum work. The asynchronous are time and location flexible, that you don't have a specific night you need to meet. Our courses are seminars. You'll interact with your peers on a daily basis. They're not independent studies. So it's not that you can say, okay, I'm only going to do the online class on Saturday mornings, and that you had to click through a set of modules. Our classes instead, as graduate courses, are seminars where you'll talk to your peers during the week. You'll discuss readings and so forth. They have interactive components with them, with your peers. Questions we get a lot are about the practicum courses. So let me take you through this for a minute. If you're a campus-based student in the Msn Literacy, the practicums experiences are part of your course. All of these courses take place after school or in the summer. We assume that many of you are teaching, and you're teaching during the day. So our practicum courses often occur at a local elementary school where you teach the students after school. This semester and in spring semester, we're doing that remotely. We're still working with a local elementary school. We're still meeting in like the Tuesday from 4 to 7 time, but we're doing all of that remote given current pandemic situations. At other times, we actually meet out at the school and you work with the students as part of that class. For online students, if you're the Msn Literacy Online, the practicum experiences are either video recorded or conducted via Zoom during the after school hours. And so that, in that case, we'll work with you. You'll have to have appropriate technology for those experiences. And we have some technology forms to help you out with that. If you're an online student in the Msn Literacy, you're responsible for arranging your practicum experiences with students in your building, and we'll work with you on how to talk with your building administrators and parents on working through a practicum setting and student. One question we get all the time, you've taken a graduate credit someplace else and you want to transfer that credit to the UAlbany degree. You can request for courses to be transferred. We review them and we get back to you on what it would be comparable to. So you try and submit the form early as you can. We don't want to get you in a course that then we give you credit for, right? So we'll look at your syllabus from your course, the course description. We'll see how it matches up for us. Sometimes it might count, for example, as the children's literature course, or it might count as an elective, depending on what matches the best. We cannot take transfer credit on practicum courses, but sometimes we work through what might count as an elective. All right, so I'm going to pause there and we're going to go to some of the submitted questions. I'm going to go through these one by one, and Risha and Alyssa are going to jump in on some of them, okay? So the prerequisites for the MS in childhood education, the primary prerequisite for that is initial certification in childhood ed. We do have a non-cert option for that for someone who lives out of state. So I don't know if any of you are living out of state, but for most of you, it's the undergrad degree and the initial certification. How many credits for the childhood ed and the MS in literacy? Both of those are 30 credits unless you want to do both the B6 and the 512, and then it's 36 credits. So more information on the student teaching components. Do you have partner schools for student teaching? Where? So we don't have what's called student teaching per se. That would be the Msn Special Ed Lit 2s that don't have any. They have full internships and so forth. That's why we're separating them out today. But we do have practicum sites. So those of you who are in the campus-based programs, we have schools that we work with, and you actually do the practicum as part of your course. Okay, what is the cost per credit hour? Alyssa, I'm going to ask you on this.
Absolutely. One. So the best and most accurate place to find that information is through our student accounts office. I just sent the link to that website in the chat. And you'll see if you click that link that right on the left-hand menu, there's a tab for tuition and costs. And because we don't set those are set by our graduate school, it's always best to look there. They do change each term slightly, and so it's always good to just check and see what the most up-to-date information is through our student accounts office. They provide information on tuition and fees on the per credit basis. So you can take a look and kind of see for yourself, depending on how many credits you're taking each semester.
Okay, what options are available for students working full-time? All of these are for students working full-time. We primarily have people who are teaching, or people who are substituting, or people that don't have a job yet and want to go down that path. So we don't have any classes during the day. They're all in that either 4 o'clock or 4:30 time slot, or they're fully online, in which there's no meeting time. And we also have a very active summer session for the final practicum and for online courses. So that's the assumption of this program. Previous grad credits, we do have transfer. You can transfer up to 6 credits, and it's just a matter of how do they fit into the program that we offer, and we do the review as I suggested earlier. If you have any questions about the graduate credit transfer, please contact Risha. Okay.
Risha, I'm going to pop your email address in, even though it's on the next slide or one of the slides, I'm just going to put it in the chat as well.
Okay.
That's fantastic. So this is a good question. If you hold initial certification in childhood ed, do you need to retake the Ed TPA in early childhood to enter the MS in early childhood? No. Once you've taken the Ed TPA in childhood, let's answer this a different way. If you hold initial certification in childhood ed, you would apply for the MS in childhood ed or the MS in reading or MS in literacy. What you would do to get the MS in early childhood is you would take coursework and you would apply to state ed for the early childhood certificate. Mm-hmm. With your master's degree, but you only have to take the Ed TPA once. So if that was your big concern, I hope you're a bit relieved about that. How many credits do you recommend taking per semester? Here's the deal. For every 3-hour class, 3-credit course you take, which is 1, you need to plan on about up to 10 hours preparing for it. So if you are a full-time teacher, we recommend you take 3 credits, especially your first semester. Some people manage to move that up to 6 a semester and do okay. If you're a brand new teacher, we say 3 credits, which is 1 course. If you are a full-time student, we do have people take 9 to 12 credits. But if you're starting to substitute and do all that kind of thing, you just have to be careful. The advantage of substituting is, during the last month of classes when you have lots of projects due, you can say no to the substituting and so forth. So typically, if you're a full-time teacher, we recommend 3 credits, which is 1 course, up to 6 credits. We know some people need 6 credits for financial aid reasons. And then the online option for MS and literacy only for full-time teachers, that's because you work with a student in your school district. That's why that requirement is in place, so that we don't get the students for you in that case. You work with a student in your building. Risha and Alyssa, anything to add to what my answers were on those questions that I may have forgotten? We're going to open the floor here in a minute.
No, I think you did a great job addressing those.
Risha, anything else?
No, nothing else.
We did receive a question from someone who is interested in obtaining both childhood and special education certification, who currently does not hold a New York State certification. So do you mind briefly talking about the Special Education and Literacy 2 program? I'm going to link the program page and recommend that she follow up with Risha.
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure though, because while I'm reading it, she said she's an undergrad, but she didn't say that she's not in an initial program.
Oh,
so
okay.
She could be in an initial.
So I'll answer this 2 ways.
Okay.
We have one, let's say you already have your initial certification in childhood. We actually have a program that it's called the Msn Special Ed in Literacy 1. If you already have initial certification, you can apply to it to get both special ed and literacy. That's just not the focus of our session today. But we do have one of those, and that really makes you marketable to do that program, the Special Ed 1, because you're taking your initial certification and you're adding 2 additional certifications to it that are both in high needs areas. That program is full-time because there's a whole internship around the special ed component of it and the way you progress through the program. So most people who do that are full-time and not teaching because of that internship. The special ed and literacy 2 is for people who don't have any initial certification at all. That program, you come in, you do a childhood student teaching first, then you do an internship in special ed education, and finally you do the literacy practicums. So that's an option, and if you want to know more, we connect you with Bruce Sadler, Dr. Sadler for that, but if you go through Risha, we can get you to the right person too.
We had someone who will be birth through 6 certified and would like to apply for the master's in early childhood. She wants to know if a master's in another area like literacy would be better.
So you're dual, you have the birth to grade 2 and the grade 1.
Early and childhood.
So you could apply to the early childhood or childhood. You could apply to the MSN reading. So here's the way to think about it. The MS in early childhood and childhood, if you know you're going to teach elementary or early childhood, that's a good program in that it takes you through another course. You take a social studies, a math, a science to build up your subject matter knowledge. But then our program really focuses on the key literacy areas. That's why it's in the literacy department, is to broaden your knowledge of literacy. That's why some superintendents like that you do our degree in that area. It doesn't give you the literacy certification, but you'll take children's literature, you'll take coursework on different, if you're in the early childhood, you'll take language acquisition, you'll take early literacy. So you can also look at the coursework to see which one seems to fit your area the best. The literacy certification includes the practicums. It does give you another initial certification. So if you're looking for another initial certification, the literacy one would be the way to go. Then the other option in the middle is the MS in reading. That has a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of electives in it. That program, you have more say in building what extra courses you would take. It does not have the practicums, but it does give you something on your transcript reading that's a little different than early childhood or childhood.
Someone asked if they can do the birth through 12 literacy program fully online.
You can do no, because the assumption there, first of all, if you're already teaching, we encourage you to do it in the area where you're teaching. Because the problem there is most of you, like if you're teaching first grade, it can get hard to find a secondary school. You're automatically usually going outside of your school to your district. But the other problem there is we only have so many seats in our program, and so we were reaching our limits, and so that's also our way to keep the seats open, a broader range of seats open for people who want one or the other.
Someone would like to know if a screenshot of the EdTPA scores or a copy of the email score would suffice as proof for passing the exam.
Do you want me to answer that one?
Yep.
For the EdTPA scores for the entrance exam, you can upload into the additional materials section of the application your it's usually 7 or 8 page summary of the EdTPA.
Someone else mentioned that at St. Rose, the MS in Childhood Education program is 48 credit hours. Do we happen to know what the difference between our program is and their program, because it's a bit of a credit difference?
I can tell you that. Their 48-hour childhood program is if you don't have initial certification. So if you're not a teacher yet and you don't have initial certification, we have the special ed lit too. We don't have a childhood only. So that's a program that's a childhood only to get your initial certificate.
That's right.
Our program is for people who already have initial certificate. In New York State, within 5 years after your initial cert, you need to get a master's degree plus 3 years of teaching. There's a range, but our masters are for that professional certification. That St. Rose program is for initial certification.
These are some great questions.
They're wonderful questions.
Someone did ask a question, and since we're recording, I did just want to say it out loud in case this recording goes out to anyone else. They wanted to know if we're accepting the ATSW as an entrance exam. And the answer to that question is yes. As of right now, due to COVID-19, we are accepting that as an entrance exam. It's always, that's for our upcoming term that you're applying for. So if you're thinking about applying in the future, it's always a good idea to check back as our policies around COVID-19 are changing with the guidance and regulation that we're receiving.
Other questions?
Tiana, I see that you said that you'll have dual certification when you graduate. So we also have a program that's outside of the literacy department that if you are certified in childhood and special education, that provides professional in both of those areas. But the MS in childhood education would also fulfill the requirements for your professional for those areas if you will have those two certifications when you graduate.
Yeah,
and
see,
you can
that's
follow
an
up.
important question because we get that. So
Yep.
someone who's dual certified, when you complete the master's degree, that will make you eligible for professional certification for both of those initial areas. Some people are told you have to do 2 degrees. You don't. You only
That's
need
right.
to do 1. So the
That's
childhood
right.
ed for us, or the literacy, or the Msn reading, any of them would be fine for you.
Right. Let's see. If you're only substitute teaching, can you still do the online master's in literacy? Or are all classes online due to COVID-19 for spring 2021?
So to do the online and Msn literacy, you need a full-time teaching job. And that's because you need to have a student in your building, and you can't, those practicum courses go over several semesters. So, you might take 1 in the fall, 1 in the summer, 1 next fall, and then your final one the following spring. So we're looking at people who have full-time degrees. Now, if you're interested in the literacy, you can apply to the Msn reading, and then if you get a full-time position, you can apply to change to literacy. And we would work with you, assuming there's room. We're always having, how many people can we fit, but we try and work toward that. And so the Msn reading is online. You could go that route and then apply to transfer to the Msn literacy.
I just want to highlight the versatility of that Msn reading, that it progresses your initial certificate in any area. So even if you weren't able to get into that literacy program due to space or for whatever reason, if you didn't have a secure full-time position, if you have initial certification, that program is a wonderful way to progress your initial certification to professional. It's a really great program that's offered online. And so I definitely encourage that as well.
It has the most flexibility, that's for sure. I mean, half of your courses are electives, so you get to kind of pave your way, and that's why we can try and help you toward Msn literacy if that's the direction you want to go.
I think we've addressed all of the questions in the chat. Does anybody have additional questions? Oh, I just got one. Let's see. So there's someone who holds initial certification in childhood grades 1 through 6, very interested in the early childhood program. Their goal is to obtain professional certification in early childhood. And so they're curious, they should apply to the MS in childhood, and then how would they go about transferring that into the early childhood certification? And that's a great and wonderful question, and it is definitely possible.
Yes. So here's how that happens. What you do is you make sure on your application, you write that in there that you're interested in doing that in the, what do you want us to know section.
In the application for childhood, right?
In the application for childhood, because then your advisor can look at that, and what will happen is in that childhood degree, there are electives, and they will help you take the language acquisition, which focuses on B2, and they'll help you take the early literacy, which focuses on B2, and then you can go. So for some people, those are the 2 courses. They don't even need to finish the master's degree. They can take those 2 courses, apply to state ed. Now, ultimately, state ed tells you what courses we don't get to make that decision, but those are 2 courses that typically state ed has counted, because it depends on what else is on your transcript, right? But what they'll do is they'll look at that, and you do is the individual pathway option, and they can look at those 2 courses and say, okay, now you have what you need for the early childhood, and they can give you the early childhood license.
That's exactly right. So when it comes to adding a certification, so right now for our programs, because you hold initial cert in childhood, you're eligible for that MS in childhood. The way that New York State works is that they take a look at your transcript, and they'll see what courses you've taken and what you need and what you're missing to add an additional certificate, which is kind of the process that you'd be going through that Dr. Gottlieb mentioned, called individual evaluation pathway. And so in some cases that might be them saying you need 2 courses in this particular area, and you need to take an additional certification exam. And what Dr. Gottlieb just described is that we can do our best to recommend coursework that would fulfill those possible missing requirements, so that when you do go to apply for that early childhood cert through the individual evaluation pathway, our hope is that you have the requirements that you need. Now, New York State can always come back, even if we've done our best to recommend the courses, they can always come back and say, but you still need this, or you still need this. But all you would have to do is fulfill those simple requirements that New York State would provide to you.
So the next one, Risha, do you want to jump in on that? Are you all set? Or Alyssa, were you jumping in?
I was just going to read it out loud. That was the next question. So someone who will be birth through 6 certified but is wondering about special education and literacy too.
Okay, so what you're going to do, if you're already certified, I think your question is, you want to add the special ed cert. What you would do is actually the Special Ed and Literacy 1 program, and that Special Ed and Literacy 1 is for people who are already certified, have their initial cert, and it lets them add both the special ed and the literacy, but it's the Special Ed and Literacy 1.
I do want to jump in there, Dr. Gottlieb, just because there is a program outside of the literacy department that allows you to, if you have childhood ed certification, to only add special education without the literacy component. If your only goal is to add special education, I've linked that program. That's our Masters of Special Education Internship Certificate program. And so what's great about the program that Dr. Gottlieb is mentioning is that you would have that special education added, but also literacy. And I think for anybody who's worked in a classroom, childhood ed, literacy, and special education are extremely complementary certificates to hold. They will help you in any general education classroom. But if you are really only interested in that special ed cert edition, that there is another option for that.
Okay.
So our next question, somebody did ask, are all classes online in spring of 2021 due to COVID-19?
So right now, every class that we've submitted for spring for the MS program is online, but I'm going to say online either synchronous or asynchronous. So they may be synchronous where you meet on Tuesday nights for 3 hours on Zoom, or they may be fully online asynchronous via Blackboard. But we don't have any in the spring that you need to come to campus, and none in literacy at all. They're all on either due to COVID. That's not typical. I mean, typically we do have some on campus, but due to COVID in the spring, we've moved everything remotely. That wasn't already that way.
So we have 2 questions that are sort of confirming some things that we've mentioned. The first is if someone were to go through the childhood education program to earn both childhood and early childhood, they would apply for both of those toward the end of their program and be certified in both. And the answer is yes, you would just use a different pathway to apply for that early childhood certificate. So you're completing a program in childhood education, and so you would go through the traditional pathway using a program code to apply for that certificate. And then when you go to apply for the early childhood certification, you would apply through the individual evaluation pathway that we mentioned.
But that would be for an initial.
Correct.
Yes. I just wanted to clarify that because she, I'm not sure, if it asked if it was for professional. It will eventually be for professional for
Sure.
both, but you just have to apply for the initial first.
Once you have your 3 years, then you can apply for professional in both. And then
Right.
just for clarification, someone wanted to confirm that the Master's in Literacy is only for full-time teachers.
No, our regular campus-based MS in Literacy, we have lots of part-time people. So MS in Literacy is open to part-time on campus. The only qualifier there is if you're trying to do the MS in Literacy online, the online version, you need to be a full-time teacher in a school.
Do you need to be a full-time teacher for the Special Education and Literacy program?
No, for Special Ed and Literacy, pretty much everyone is not teaching.
That's a full-time
It's a full-time.
on-campus program.
For the Special Education and Literacy 2 program.
No, but she's asking about the one, I think.
Oh, she's asking about the one. Okay.
I'm not sure. But the Special Ed and Literacy program does have a teaching experience, right? Their last semester. So it's very difficult to be a full-time teacher and take that program.
Yeah, the way to think about the Special Ed and Literacy, you're adding 2 certifications, but the Special Ed requires the regular 40-day in a school internship. The Literacy, and that's the question about the teaching thing. The Literacy, it's a total of 50 practicum hours. That only 50 hours, not 50 days, 50 hours. That's why they're part of our courses, part of the summer courses and so forth, to help you get those hours within our coursework. So we have both, our MSN Literacy on campus has a lot of both part-time and full-time. And what happened this fall is we had full-time students who became part-time students because they got jobs. So we work with you in that. That's a good problem to solve when you get a job, but we had to work with some people on which courses to keep and which to drop. And then we had full-time teachers who lost jobs in our current thing, as there were layoffs. So we work with you there too on trying to help you get the best place you can be for your current context.
Any other questions? How does initial certification turn into professional? Would you be fulfilling the state requirements of obtaining a master's degree in education and 3 years of full-time teaching? So the master's degrees that we're talking about fulfill the educational requirements for professional certification. So professional certification involves obtaining a master's degree in an approved teacher preparation program or a related master's program, and that's what these programs are that we're mentioning. But on top of that master's degree, you need 3 years of full-time teaching experience in a school. That those 2 things combined allow you to obtain professional certification.
So we give you the master's degree. That's one of the components, and that's the way to think about it. For the early child and in the childhood, just like your undergrad, we recommend you directly to the state for early childhood and for the literacy. The MS in reading, you apply yourself. It's just a different pathway that you pick.
If you're not teaching during the MS in Literacy, how do you get matched with students for practicum hours?
So I'm going to give you a very specific example. This fall, ELTL 619, our writing course, that course meets from 4 to 7:10, I think. And the first couple of weeks you meet as a class. Starting this week, all of those students, our graduate students, We have worked with elementary schools, and last night, or I think it was Thursday night, was the first night with the elementary students. So if you're on the campus-based program, we know you're not teaching, so we provide the students for you. That's the way that one works. So for example, in the summers, last summer, we had 30 students. We had the elementary students, and we paired you up with the graduate students. The difference is for the online program where you're already teaching, you do that, you do the practicum a different way. It's part of your asynchronous Blackboard course where you work with the student in your school for some of those courses. So if you're in the campus-based program, we provide the students for you. It's part of that after-school collaborations we have with some of the local school districts. And we do that, we're doing it remotely now in this spring, given the COVID situation.
So just to elaborate on that a little bit, for instance, one of our courses, you would all go into Cohoes, Abram Lansing School District after school. So you're working with the children from 4 to 5:30 right at the school. COVID has changed that a little bit, so it's via Zoom now, but just to give you an idea of what that actually looks like if you were an on-campus student when we're not in a pandemic.
And in that case, you actually then have your class right in the school too. So you tutor the kids for the first part, and then you have your class right there at the school. So there'd be some semesters you don't come to campus because your courses are out in the schools after school hours.
Someone asked, how long do you have to obtain professional certification / complete the 3 years of full-time teaching?
Okay.
I believe that's 5 years. I believe it's 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, 5 years with it. I had to think what they were asking. You have 5 years after your initials to get your professional. That includes the teaching, the mentored experience, and the MS degree. They usually will extend it a year or two. They have traditionally, I can't say they always will do that because I can't read the future, but traditionally they do they know that people have babies and they have life situations, and so they usually will extend it a couple of times. So I'm going to say 5 years with possibility of 7. But again, that 7 is a state ed decision, not mine.
Right.
Any other questions? We've had some really, really good questions in this session.
We have, these are great questions.
Wonderful. So everybody has Risha's contact information. I also want to provide the contact information for my office in case you're thinking about a program that's outside of the literacy department. So I know I mentioned one of them, but there are a few others just in case. But the ones that we talked about today seem to fit the needs of a lot of the students who were here today. But just in case you guys need anything, and we can direct you to the right person through the PI Center, which is the Pathways into Education Center at UAlbany.
That's a key number to keep because the PI Center will help you all the way along. It's a great benefit of our program. You know, as you, especially those of you who have the COVID certificate, they'll help you navigate all those teach requirements, all the things that you need to do. You can talk with them and say, here's what I'm missing, or any kind of support you need around there. They're wonderful at helping in that way.
Teacher certification is not always the most straightforward. It's shocking, but that's what we're here for. And so we, for that particular student who was asking about completing the MS in childhood and then earning early childhood, that's something that we could discuss with you a little bit more in depth to show you about that process. So that's just an example of how our office can help you in the future. In case anybody is wondering, this session is being recorded. So if for some reason you wanted to go back and hear some of this information again, I'm sure that we'd be happy to share that recording with you after this session is over. If you just reach out to either myself or Risha, we can connect you with that. And yeah, we appreciate you guys taking the time to be here this evening and for all of your thoughtful questions. Dr. Goatley or Risha, do you have anything that you would like to add?
I'm just going to say, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help answer questions. Risha can help anything on these programs we discussed. The Pi Center will help in so many ways. They can get you in the right direction. So please do not hesitate to reach out.
I second that. Send me an email is probably the best way to do it right now because of the COVID and I'm not in the office. But so it takes me a little longer to get to the phone messages, but please feel free to reach out anytime.
All right. Thank you all and have a great evening.
Thank you. Hannah, I saw you just joined in, right? You're muted, so.
I am so sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry.
We recorded everything.
Okay,
So what
perfect.
you're going to do is either send Pi or Risha an email and we'll get you the recording. It will take a day or two for us to share it. But what I suggest you do is that you can watch the video. We know things are crazy right now, so don't worry. You can watch the video and then follow up with any questions, okay?
Okay, thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it. Thank you so much for
Welcome.
having us.
Glad you joined us, even for a
Thank
few
you.
minutes. Okay.